Yep, we're good. Okay, I was talking to myself for about 3 minutes there, but let's not tell anybody that. Good morning. I will take all questions except the ones on the Lotus in finale. I look like a midget. Okay, I think that's better. I think so. And I got my head cut off. Hold on. You would think that I would use the presets. Let's just make sure that the settings are right on the mic, because last time you guys lied to me. Good, we're good. A couple things. Let's just start at the beginning. Let's start with the ES, and we're going to go from there. I will try to take as many questions as I can today. I do have a lot to cover for you guys that I think is really important. So the very first thing that I would do with the ES, and I did save this so that we can just go over this, and now we have it down here. Everybody voted for that, so that's where it'll be. I kind of want to make it blue. I kind of want to change the logo color to blue too and everything, to be honest with you, but I guess green makes more sense since we've been that way forever. So if you look at the market and we see that we held right here, a lot of people are looking at that level, that April level. That's exactly where we opened and held. I mean, we could find something down here. Like we could say, oh, like here's December 28th. And, then we held this little move. I mean, okay. I mean, I kind of think it goes back to here personally, that high, and then you got near it and that was it. So you come back, you retested, and now we go back and backfill. And, it could be a while, guys, before you get back to here, like a while. So you don't like, that's a lot. And that's actually a good thing because you can position build now. I personally think that the majority of it is behind us. The tact has changed a little bit. The VIX spiked to the point where it's time to start buying equities. Anything over 45, 50, it really is that time to start like, okay, let's start picking at equities, and selling vol. Like that's what you're supposed to do there, quite frankly, but it's pretty simple stuff. So it doesn't matter. Anyway, what we want to do here in looking at this is just go, okay, well, what's the right move for us here? I think when you drill into this and you go look at this on a 5 for a second, you'll kind of see it. Like the biggest thing for us is, can we get over the shenanigan level where they told us that there was going to be a pause? Because that's the same level that we paused on Friday, which means that we had, a lot of options there. Obviously, this is open, it's semi pre and post. I don't know. It's like TradingView took a good thing and then figured out how can I screw it up. But with some of this stuff, do you want to watch these levels? Yeah, you do. Are you going to get there today? I think you're getting here today. I think you're definitely getting to this today, and then you're going to test that level, and then you're going to see if that holds or not. I don't know, are you getting down here today? It's going to take a lot to get this thing to sell off, like a lot. I mean, when you realize that that's, 7%. And this is always the problem with waiting for, the wrong indicator, as I refer to them. If you're using lagging indicators like moving averages right now, it's very, very difficult to assume anything like that, in my opinion, on these levels. So let me just drop this down and get that in there. That's how I see it. I mean, let's go through these so I can have time for questions and stop. I would say that I also think it's interesting that if you look at the NQ, you're not in an area anywhere near as conducive to, look at that previous close. Isn't that crazy? You're not in anywhere, look how you fought it, and then you flipped it. You're not in an area that's anywhere near as conducive to me as like the S&P is. But I wouldn't sleep on this. Like the way you held here, it's pretty darn impressive. Even Micron coming out and increasing prices today, and it went up. It seems to me that the move, quite frankly, is like, hey, just tell us what you're doing and tell us what your plan is, and then we'll kind of go from there. And I think that's really important. Really important. Like, hey, just tell us what your plan is, and then as long as you have a plan, we can factor it in, and then we can kind of go from there. And I think that's how you should view it. I really do. I do think you're going to get to here though, and we'll go from there. But I'm biased. I mean, I started buying yesterday, and then I started picking yesterday, I should say, and then I really started buying last night. the more I read and the more I looked. If you're not able to buy overnight right now, you're really missing out. I have no affiliation with any of those places, but you need to look at your system and make sure that you're able to buy overnight. What else is of interest to me that I think should be of interest to you? What do you got for me, brother? What do you got here? There's a couple things I really want to go over. 8:30. I don't have the video in. You got to remind me of the video, man. We all know. We all know how my mind works. It's like scrambled eggs. Hold on one second here. My mother said I had the voice of an angel. Private pre-market Tuesday. How do we have that on? Private pre-market recording Tuesday. Did you put the thumbnail in? Did you add the thumbnail? Sorry, guys. Give me a second. I think I did something wrong. No, I did something right. He must have just added the thumbnail. I don't know how I got there. It's so weird. Unless he did it. I got like a helper. Well, maybe he'll respond to me. Hold on one second. Of nothing, you're entertained or annoyed. At least you're feeling something. It tells you you're alive. All right. Great. Thank you. He added it. He took initiative. Yay, initiative. All right, let's go. So let's do this on the SPY and let's do this on the Qs, and then let's go from there. Same level, same superheated, just a different name, right? But you know, whether you call it Manhattan or New England, it's the same chowder, just different color. So if you watch up here, that's your level again. I do think you're getting there today. I'm not going to lie. I do think you're going to test that at some point. I think it's interesting, this level down here. I thought that was pretty cool how that held. And then we would just kind of mark off the close too, which was also that level, which was that battleground. But it's interesting because that was a different battleground on the ES. So I always get asked, like, why go through both? That's why you go through both. You can always overlay the levels, but the levels sometimes look a little different. And I think that's important. So you can screenshot them for yourself. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here staring at the same thing. Again, here, let's just take a break for a sec. I think you got to look at the low here, and it seems to be that open that's carrying more weight there. And again, let's use that close. And I think you have a shot at this today. I really do. People are like, that's crazy. Yeah, I get it. Crazy like a fox. But I do. I think there could be another 2% out there today. When people start understanding what happened this morning and what happened last night, there's a couple key things that I think are important before, like, you start the day that I would be paying attention to. You got to watch the close too. But I mean, do we want 4,000 levels there? Maybe we put another one right there, right? No, too many levels. I think there's too many levels, but what do I know? Here's the thing about it from my perspective and how I think you should look at this. China basically came out with their hand yesterday. China came out with their hand yesterday and like is exacerbated when the U.S. raised reciprocal tariffs again and said, hey, now we're doing 50%. And they came out and said, this is exhausting, blah, blah, blah. I was kind of surprised they did that and didn't ratchet it back up and say, we're adding 50%. Like, they already acquiesced in a way. And they're saying, like, you know, we can't even negotiate like this, which is their way of saying we want to negotiate. I thought that was really interesting, their language and how fast it changed when he did that. So now the question becomes, what does that look like? I don't know. Also, Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, on TV saying everything's on the table. We are open to negotiations. This is, you know, come and talk to us. And he said 70 nations have already started. It went from 50 to 70 yesterday. I also think what the EU did was pretty smart in the way that they're handled it. We'll do zero if you do zero. So I think there's some things there that could really take the temperature down on the market. And we'll go from there. But, there's plenty of time to see that. First thing with the VIX that you'd really want to see, you really want to see the VIX break this 38 level. From there, it's pretty much smooth sailing the whole way down. And I think that that's something that you could see today that's definitely worth paying attention to and, kind of go from there. But the big level there is really going to be here. Can you get below, this low for Monday? Yes or no, right? This is where you kind of gapped up at 3 a.m. and then you're whacking it all around. But can you get below that low? And I think that that's really important as well. It's definitely something that I'd be paying attention to. Stocks yesterday had probably its greatest volume day of all time, and I would not sleep on that. You guys can go back and take a look at it from yourself, but I don't think I have anything that's even close to it. Maybe this back here on 18, maybe that is. I'd have to go back and take a look. No, you're not even there. It's another million. So when I went and go through it, I don't think I really found anything that was even close. Let me start going back far enough. You don't even have the ball. So you have all-time high buying volume yesterday on the stocks. I think that's very important for you guys. I think you should be aware of that. You might want to look at that today. Do semis go to zero? Does no one ever need a semiconductor chip again? Seems kind of silly, right? And you definitely broke that, 21 high. And then from there, so that's probably going to become somewhat of a resistance point. But, you look at that from where you closed yesterday and, that's 25% on the semis to get back from the lows. From here where you are now, from where you closed, it would be roughly 15% just to get back there. So you start thinking about earnings on semiconductors here versus earnings on semiconductors here. You can see why people might be buying semiconductors now. Once you get some stabilization in understanding how tariffs are going to look. Remember, when you had stabilization in how tariffs were going to look, that's when Ferrari bounced. And to me, that's really important. And again, something to think about here. You bounced down here. It looks like you retested that area yesterday. So definitely something worth paying attention to. Super thin name, really hard to trade. But, when everyone's puking this stuff out, if you're like a long-term guy, this is where you look at this kind of stuff. Although their new cars got really bad reviews. People are returning it. It's a lot of money for that car, and they don't like it at all. So you look at that level, and you've held that breakout. Ever since that huge volume spike, you've held that. So as long as you're holding that, I think you're okay. The question really becomes, do you break that low? I think it's like 90 or something like that, 91, 391. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you're trying your butt off here to hold that. The question is that that's your test? This is your retest. Do you hold? And then stuff like this, you kind of start going and looking at RSI, or at least I do, and start going through the RSI and saying, here we are. And then you kind of go from there. Maybe not, but I definitely think it's worth paying attention to. You really want to make sure that it can hold that 400 level and then kind of go from there. I think that's important. I do think some of these luxury brands, there's a really good article and you can just Google it. I'm not going to go through it, but Macron went out to these guys and said, hey, you need to pull your stores and you need to pull all your stuff out of the U.S. and stop growing in the U.S. And it was like the 50 largest companies in France. And they essentially laughed him out of the room. There's an article, you can find it online. So that's not going to happen. What I would think is interesting when I look at this is kind of the way this is shaping up on a weekly chart. This is tough for me because that's a huge level. But I would be looking at these names a little bit. Here's my larger problem with this. I've got a declining weekly 200-day moving average. I like when I get above the 200-week to buy. The problem with that is, what am I looking at? 40% now to get back to that. So I almost think sometimes when I have these averages, what I like to do with this, and this is just something that you can do, it doesn't mean that you have to do it, is I like to look at history and go, all right, well, here's that great financial crisis, right? And so then what I'll tend to do is go and say, well, this is when we troughed off of that, meaning the low valuation in relation to this. And so like sometimes I'll just go, okay, well, where were we there? Okay, well, that was 100%. All right, so if we ever dropped more than that, right, then we could look at it and say that's something we have to pay attention to. You can go back to some of these too, like, all right, well, from here to here, where were we? Okay, well, that was 21%. So you can kind of gauge it. I'm not going to tell you to blend it because I think you have to look at everything in its entirety. But you want to start looking at where some of these things are and start saying, do we want to start looking at these names? Hermes held up like exceptionally well. I think it's KYXL. Is that it? Crane Global Luxury Index, which has all these in it, which just fell off a cliff, which is super thin. But when you look at something like this, it's a way to buy all them, but it's super, super thin, guys. I think you have to start thinking about that a little bit. We also want to watch the dollar and see how that's acting, and it's holding in here. So we want to make sure that we're cognizant of that. What else? If you look at the way that we're acting on yield, they're selling bonds. And people are like, well, that's bad for the market. It's bad for the market till you realize that they're selling bonds based upon the equity risk premium. I'll get into it on Saturday. A couple guys in the room were already asking about it, and they were right to ask about it. The equity risk premium has skewed significantly towards equities versus bonds. So pension funds are going to do that. They're going to shift. This is the symbol for shift. So it is what it is. I'd go from there. As far as the names that you guys are going to ask about, it's usually the same. And what I would say is this is where people do this kind of stuff. And this was my point in yesterday's video. Like, oh, I'm going to buy it when it's above, the 5-day and the 5 days pointing up. If you're doing that in this kind of environment, you're buying this stuff like in this range, you're never getting the bottom. And as long as you're okay with that, that's fine. But you've got guys yesterday that are using RSI and other tools, and they're picking this thing off in the high 60s. I didn't do this trade, but I would start adding tools to your toolbox, especially in this environment. Would I buy this here? I think you have to look at how you're going to act into that 83. So in other words, I think you have to look at like these previous closes on how am I going to act on Friday's close? Like, how are the people that held this over the weekend that came in and went, oh, Jesus, like how are they going to act, right? I'm sorry, what was that, Thursday? How are they going to act when they get their chance back? Like, are they going to be like on board, or are they going to be like, oh, thank God I'm out? You don't know that yet. So what you want to do with any of those names like PLTR or Hood is you want to look at these levels and go, okay, where is that level? Because it's human behavior. I'm never going to sell. I'm going to hold forever. And that's like the lie they tell themselves. And then the truth comes out. Well, now you're break even. What do you want to do? And they're like, oh, I'm going to get out. And so they went through all that pain to break even, which is just stupid. So I would watch things like this. I do think that the Hood's very interesting, how you held the 200-day moving average. Do I feel that I have to get in there today? I don't. I think you're going to bonk all around this market. I think you're going to have tons of news. I would be looking to have positions and then build those positions now. I think you're in that stage where if you have your names, and not the worst idea. Let's take some questions. So I don't put the usual suspects here, and then we'll go from there. And we'll do it that way. What's up, Nat? What's up? Coming in early. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind walking through it. So what I tend to do is like with this kind of stuff, I just want to know where everybody is. I actually gave everybody this tip last night in the video, and I don't mind sharing this stuff. It's not like, I don't feel like, oh, you have to like, oh, sign up for this in order for me to share this super secret thing. Like, it's not super secret, man. It's just, I've been doing this a long time. So what you're always trying to do is you're trying to understand what people are thinking, right? Like that's your goal. It's because this is just charting human behavior. you ever read like any of Niederhofer's books? Like, go look the guy up. Victor Niederhofer used to work with Soros, and then Taleb spawned off of Niederhofer, who wrote like Fooled by Randomness. Like, you're just charting human behavior. Like, people will look at it and they'll actually see music, right? Like the crescendos, whatever. So when I look at this stuff, I just want to know where the freaking players are. That's it. So I go, okay, well, we're going to zero. It's never coming back. And you can see that level here and how we tested that in January 23. No one's ever going to buy a book on Amazon again, yada, yada, yada. And so what I do is I will look at the control point of all those people that own from there. And that'll give me a value low area, a value high area, and it'll give me point of control. Point of control is not the average. Point of control is where the majority of people own a specific price. So if I drop VWAP, VWAP's going to be very different, right? Which is why different tools in the toolbox for different times. If you VWAP here, it's not the same thing as like everybody over 4 years, this is their price point. Like, this is where they own it. And then when you draw those lines, you look, is there anything indicative that told you that this becomes an area of interest? And you're like, well, yeah, August 5th, when everybody was like, the sky is falling in Chicken Little, what happened? They defended that point of control. Okay, so we broke over it, never retested it, and now we're here. Okay, so when I got down to here, it showed you very clearly when you drop this down, it's going to not put it there. It's going to put it up here. It gets weird when I do it this way. But you're down in this area. So when you watch this pre-market and you see that area, look how it's holding all in that area. So it's telling you what it's going to do. The question is, what's it going to do when it gets back up to here today? We don't know yet. So that's how I did that. And that's where I actually go over it. And I watched yesterday's video, and you can skip to the end of yesterday's video. It's when I really walk through it. But this kind of stuff and RSI, in my experience, if you're looking like longer term, this is when you use those tools. If I'm using this, and you can use whatever you want, you can trade however you want. It doesn't matter. But if I'm using this and saying, I'm not buying till I'm above the 5-day moving average, and then the 5-day moving average we have to go above it, and then we have to come back and back test. Yeah, I'm selling to you at 190 after making 30 bucks, right? So, and some people are cool with that and go, I don't care about that. I want the meat. I want that 10% to 220. What I tend to do when you have these corrections is realize that you don't have them that often. So when you're asking about like thought process in your question, the problem with me with thought process is my thought process is I think I'm smarter than I am. So then I'm always like, I'm going to time the bottom. How's that work out for me? Not well all the time, but that's how I view it. I'm going to pick the bottom. So then I start trying to figure out what tools will get me there, right? Because I know if I pick that off, like I picked off stuff in here, I don't ever have to sell them, like ever. Like people that bought Exxon here at 30, like they never have to get out of Exxon in their life, probably, like ever. Like stuff like that. That's what I try to do when we're fortunate enough to have these pullbacks. Like these are gifts, and people look at it like it's the worst thing in the world. Just stay out of the way, let it happen, and go from there. So I could do a whole thing on that, but that's why. So yeah, I did an EWW trade and I got stopped out of it. It was a loss. I don't see me buying any more countries until I know what the heck is going on. You remember, Bam, that we did like the e-poll trade, and we got in it, we did well with it, and then the one day I'm like, I'm out. Even Argentina, which has zero tariffs, dropped. So to me, do I really want to be out there doing this right now? No, I want to watch how this goes and kind of go from there. That's how I view this right now. So I don't think it's something that I really want to play around with here. So we'll see. But no, it's not something I really want to do right now. What's up, Tariq? Will I do it later? Yeah, 100%. Let's get through a bunch of these today. Yeah, definitely want to watch the auctions. You didn't have the volume on these names yesterday. you just didn't have it. You had nice moves, but your volume's just not there. I'm not going near them yet. I know Steven's going to yell at me, but I'm just not going near them yet. The X, I'm wondering if there's a deal out there with Japan. So when you really look at how X moved yesterday from like 37 to 45, I personally think that's what's happening. So, it's definitely there. I definitely think there's something to it. It's a trade that I was doing I keep doing this as a special situation trade, and I keep getting stopped out of it. But I do think that this gets done. I think that's why, when the prime minister came, I think that's part of their deal. They're going to do something with energy. They're going to do this whole package, and it's going to work. But I do think there's going to be something there. I do think that this gets done. When you look at like CLF or STLD, these names, did they move yesterday? Yeah, but nothing like this, like nothing. And Nippon Steel's still there. And Lutnick said he's reviewing the deal. And the day he said he was reviewing the deal, I forget when I bought it, but like I bought it and I couldn't get over it. I paid like 41 for it or 42. And I'm like, I'll just use a 41 stop because it'll never get there. And then it just hit it. I just don't see, it's very clear to me that this has a much higher degree probability of getting done than how people think it will. So that's where my head is with it. Rolls Royce, those kinds of names. I mean, I'll do ACHR since I didn't go through that. Those kinds of names, you can look at them, you can try. I'd want to see volume, like real volume. Do I want to be playing the secondary names? Are institutions going to jump into these names like Archer and Jobley? I saw this down here. Here's what I would do. So you take Archer, right? I would go through Archer and I would go through all the corporate filings. I'd go through all the corporate filings and I'd find out where all the secondaries were done. And then after I'd find out where those secondaries are done, that would be me wanting to see if that level held or not. So was there a secondary done in this area? If the answer is yes, and there was, and it's holding, cool. So I know Jobley did one. This was interesting to me. So Jobley did a secondary, right? Okay. And I think it was like $5 or something like that. It did it down here. This is when everyone loved it. Then they did their secondary and then it fell apart. The secondary was down here somewhere. So and I do want to look into this today. Put this out there. I'm thinking about it. Let me see something. I've got 17 messages here. You guys should have audio. You don't have audio? Can't hear me? Okay, hold on 1 second. No volume. You guys can't hear me. Okay, they can hear me fine. All right, I was going to say, somebody should have said something. What the heck was that? All right. So I would look for the secondary on Archer. That's what I would do. There's a long answer to your question, but that would be very important to me. I have some services up. I might be able to find that really quickly and see if I can find out where that is or not. Find that private equity, mergers, arbitrage, event-driven events, more. Let's see if I can find that or not, because I know they did secondaries. So ex Tesla raises $300 million. What day did you do this? So you raised $300 million on February 11th. Does it say how? 1 billion. Does it give you the thing? Does it tell you the price point? Primary estimated financials. Finance purchase, $8.50. Where's it at? 6. So you want to make sure you have to watch the 8.5 level because that was the last secondary done. See, like if you look at like Jobley, it's over that, I think. I think Jobley's over that price point. So like, I think that's the one that I'm more interested in from that standpoint. Form 4 filed 4 days ago. So let's see what this guy's doing. So you're selling. Form 4. So are you selling? So the CEO's selling. Well, that's not great. Or his trust is selling. Joe B. Trust. I'd have to look into what these guys are doing if they're buying amount of security acquired and or disposed of. I'd have to look at what they're doing here. I have to spend more time at the Form 4 on this. I think that's interesting, though. Hold on. April 4 days ago. Director, 10% owner. Eric Allison. These guys are doing something with the stock. Enters a distribution agreement. I have to find out where the secondary is. I think October 24th is what they're saying now. Was that the last time? I'd have to look more into it. I don't want to spend the rest of our time together doing it, but that would be on my mind with Jobley, big time. And I would be Julian. That's what I would focus on there. Like, if I can't get over that price point, you have a problem. Yeah, I think we're actually in decent shape today. We'll see how this plays out. We'll go from there. I don't expect it to just melt up, but I do think that people are going to start looking at this and putting money to work. I think I wouldn't just say you bottomed. I would just start saying, like, I think it's interesting to start looking at stuff here. When AVGO is sitting there foaming at the mouth to buy their own stock and saying we're going to put $10 billion in their own stock, you might want to pay attention to that. That might be more important to pay attention to. Remember, when you see buying, you always look at the insiders first and what they're doing, always. And they're coming out saying we're going to buy our own stock. Now, I'm not going to pay up $10, but you might want to pay attention to that. And I think what Micron's doing is very interesting. And they responded very well, 857. Thanks, Ben. Let's go from some of these. Oracle, if we have time. I don't feel liberated. I think I'll feel liberated in 2 days because I think that's what it's going to take. And then I think we'll be okay. 1884, then we'll go from there. I think you got to make sure you hold here. I do like it, but you got to make sure you hold. Tampa. People love Tampa. What's up, Journal? You know what? I really like how this acted yesterday. I thought this was really cool the way this acted yesterday. You have so many levels here, and then you gap filled down, and then you held. Like it's like right there. I was looking at the charts till like midnight last night. Like this one like just stood out to me. Like it's not, I'm at the point where I use Chat GPT so much, I just look at it and go, I don't know what the heck Google's going to do. And then someone like a week ago showed me, that knows the stuff way better than I do, showed me like Gemini and like Gemini 2.5. And I'm like, oh, okay. But like you have a band in here, right? And I do like this. Like I was looking at that. Like you have a band like right in here. We're with the band. I do. I think that this is the private pre-market has no audio. How is that possible? How is that possible that there's no volume in the private pre-market video? All right, I'm going to have to jump here, guys. I got to figure something out. Let me just go through this really quickly and see what we're there. Friday, I was net short for like the shortest I was, and I covered a lot yesterday. I'm significantly long here right now, way more than I thought I'd be this early. I can't either, and that's what I really don't understand what China was doing. I think the EU did it best. Like, hey, these are our terms, and we'll go from there. I'm just going to blow through this super quick, guys. I'm going to have to jump. So IBM, I think IBM looks good, and go from there. Yeah, I have like 200 people I got to get through. I have a way to sort through it. I will get you an email on that. I know there's a bunch of people that have been waiting on that list for like months. I have a way to sort it. So I made a video, and then I'm just going to send it to everybody, and they can look at it and go from there. It's just easier for me to sort. I would just watch that level. I got to jump, guys. I'll talk to you later. Trade to win.